Welcome to Pieces of the Past. My name is Deborah. I have a passion for fiber arts and creating new things from old. Join me on my journey as I explore the endless possibilities, the tools, and the techniques to create new pieces of the past. In today's video, I want to talk to you a little bit about your patterns for your quilting and where you go to get patterns, whether you design your own patterns or whether you buy patterns or some of both, or how you go about making your quilts and where those patterns come from. So this week I posted on our Facebook group, and you can find the link to the Facebook group in the description below. I posted a question. I wanted to know, where do you get your patterns? And as expected, most of the people on that group, since they're dealing with scraps, so they probably have made a few quilts, they said that most of them said that they got their, or most of you actually, you're watching, most of you said that you got your patterns from dissecting other, looking at the internet or whatever and seeing patterns you like, and then taking them apart visually to where you could figure out what blocks they were, and then you could make your own. And so I wanted to do a video to explain how that process works. Some people on there said that they'd like to be able to do that, but weren't sure how. And we also, hi to our new quilters. We have some new quilters, beginners on the site, and so I wanted to see if I could help you out, trying to figure out how to make your own patterns somewhat, so you don't have to necessarily purchase every pattern you see that you really like, or I'm not advocating here that you don't buy patterns, because sometimes you do need to buy patterns because the blocks are so intricate, or they're applique, or they're paper piecing, special techniques, and you would need to buy the actual pattern. You'd have to buy the pattern to make them. One thing about buying patterns over doing your own that is good is if you're learning especially, is that the person that designs the quilt pattern will tell you how to do those blocks. So you will learn a lot of techniques that you may not know. As you get more experience, then you'll be able to take what I'm going to show you today, and you'll be able to dissect patterns and figure out for yourself what's going on there and just make them yourself. Okay? So when I get my patterns, I look at pictures I like on the internet, and I'm like, okay, I like that one. That one's awesome, And usually it's the colors in it that I like. It's the way that they've arranged the colors that I like. There's movement, or they've put all of reds in one corner and, yellows in the other, or something like that, And so I don't really pay that much attention to the block. But then when I say, oh, I want to make that, then I have to go in and figure out how they made it, or end up buying the pattern if I can't. So that's what today's video is about. So let's get started on that. Okay, there are thousands of quilt blocks that have been made for years and years and years. I mean, we're talking hundreds of years, okay, that are made simply by using about 3 different pieces. Now, those pieces, when you're beginning, very simple. Start out with a square, okay? So I have here a 9-patch block, and it's called a 9-patch because there are 9 squares, okay? They are all the same size, and they're just different colors. Okay, so you can put this together fairly quickly. You put 3 blocks together, sew them to the next row, and sew them to the next row, and you've got it, right? But if you put sashing in between them, you end up with this quilt. Okay, it's just a basic 9-patch. You're only using a square. The only time you would use anything else is in the sashing. And if you don't know how to do sashing, you can visit a different video. That's not what this video is going to be about. So that is a 9-patch basic block. Now we're going to get a little harder as we flip through these. Okay, this pattern here is called a double Irish chain. It's also a very common pattern. It's also done using only squares. All the squares are the same size. They're all put in just the pattern goes by the color. All right. So in this one, you have diagonal lines of blues going this way and whites, and then they change direction and go this way. You can lay this out and play with it. If you were going to dissect this pattern, you would go and you always want to start by trying to dissect it in half, maybe if you can. So there's your half, right here. Okay. Now remember, these squares are all, these little squares of color are all exactly the same size. Okay. So we're going to then, these are identical blocks. They're just turned a different direction. Okay. So then we want to go in and we want to figure out the rows. So this is a row, so it's a white, dark blue, 3 light blues, and a dark blue, and so forth. You just do your rows, putting your squares where they go, and then you put those rows together and you've got this part of your block. And then you would make 4 of those, turn them as you go, and make your bigger block. Now, I tell you all that because using just squares, you can make this quilt. Okay, double Irish chain. You see the whites going all the way down? It's kind of hard to see in this one because I was running out of ink in my printer. The next thing we want to do is we want to add a little bit more difficulty, but we're still going to use only squares. Okay, so we're going to go with the single chain and knot. Okay, so let's see where we can go with this. We can go, we want to do this size square right here, this one and this one. They're all the same, right? But when you look at this block, you go, oh wait, this is not a square. This is 4 colors, right? Well, yes, it is. So this doesn't have a center. This has, I would divide it this way. Okay, taking out this center row right here. Right now, I'm doing what I said. I'm dissecting the pattern. Okay, so I would go like this. Okay. And you just have to study the pattern to see what it's doing. Okay, so all of those right there and right there, all of those are the same squares, same size. All right, now we're left with, if all of these are the same, we're left with these corner ones, right? And that contains this little oddball here, right? So it contains 3 colored squares and this oddball one. But if you dissect this block here and here, then you get this square isolated by itself. And all that is a 4 patch, okay, here and here. So if you make this 4 patch first and you make it the size of this square, then you can treat it as one of these squares, okay? And you can assemble this by attaching these two together, and then these together. And then you would do that 4 times, right? And then you assemble it in your row like this. You got 3 rows here, okay? I hope that made sense. I hope I went slow enough to make sense out of that. But the result, which is really cool when you get just a little bit more difficult here with squares, is this quilt. That's a very pretty quilt. But to dissect this, you first have to isolate that block and then break it down like I showed you in the last page. Okay? So let's get a little more detailed. All right, let's go to the second piece. You've got squares. Let's add rectangles. Okay, so rectangles. Here is your basic rectangle pattern. All experienced quilters know this pattern. It's called a rail fence. And here are your center lines. Okay, so we're going to dissect it immediately in the centers. And all of a sudden you see there are 4 rectangles in each square. Okay, And they're all assembled the same way. You've got a beige, an orange, a dark purple maybe, and a red. Beige, orange, dark purple, red, beige, orange, so forth. So all they did was they took the block, turned it 90 degrees, and attached it. And these two, they did the same thing, and then they attached them all together to get the rail fence block. That's hard to say. So once you get this block done, then this is the quilt, or one of them you can do. Now all these quilts I'm showing you are just one example of what you can do with the block you make. Okay, this is a rail fence, typical rail fence quilt. Okay, so then we're going to put the squares and the rectangles together. This one is called building blocks. Well, that's appropriate. Okay, so we are going to divide this in three sections because it is actually a 9-patch. You see that? You see where I'm going with this? It's a 9-patch. Here, here, okay, here, and here. All right. All of a sudden, you see where you might not have seen before. This is a 9-patch block, little bitty guy. This is kind of like a rail fence. It's got 3 rectangles that are the same size. Another 9-patch, exactly like that one. And then all of your blocks are similar. They're, you know, the same. And then you have this one square in the middle that's a solid color. All right. So you need 4 9-patches for this block. You need 4 of the rectangle ones and 1 solid. And this block will make a quilt that looks like this, or a lot of other kinds of quilts, but that's the one I chose to show you. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so then you've got your squares and your rectangles. Now the third piece that I want to show you that is used in, oh my goodness, just thousands of quilts, is the half square triangle. The half square triangle is exactly what it sounds like. It is a half square triangle. Okay, so half of your square is a triangle of one color and half is the other. All right, now there are a whole bunch of different techniques out there to show you how to make this this block right here, half and half. I'm not going to show you those in this video because this is not a technique video, but I do want you to see that it is half a square is one color and half is the other color, usually a dark and a light. Okay, now with this you can make a churn dash. Okay, so here is your 9-patch again, right? You can divide it into the 9 patches. Okay, okay, and all of a sudden you see, look here, there is a half square triangle, there's a half square triangle, there's one, and there's one, and they're all the same. And then this is just 2 rectangles put together, same, 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 and then 1 colored square in the middle. Okay, when you're looking at the internet, if you're a beginner quilter, you will see the term HST. HST is half square triangle, so don't get confused. That is what that means. So with half square triangles, you can also make pinwheels. This is a pinwheel block, and you can see that you can divide it in half to see that here and here, right? So half and half. So all it is half square triangles, 1, 2, 3, and 4, sewn into a block. All you're doing is turning the block. Okay, so with the pinwheel, you can put it in a 9-patch. So you make little pinwheels, put it in a 9-patch. Okay, and with the solid colored squares of the same size, you get this kind of block. And with that, you can make this quilt. I like this quilt. I like it a lot. But that's, to dissect this down, you just look at what they're doing here. Okay, now in this one, you've got the, what was that? That was the So you'd have to look at it and you go, okay. So see, it's here, 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 here. Okay, so it's deceiving, but there is your block. Okay, and here is another one. It's very deceiving. You have to study it. Okay. So it's not, this pinwheels with the 4 pinwheels here, that's not this block. Okay. You see that? You can pause it and check it out. Pause the video and check it out. So it's a little deceiving, but it's a very, very pretty quilt. I like it. That gives you your little pinwheels and your big giant square of pinwheels. It's pretty cool. Okay, then we move on and we put with the pinwheels some smaller squares that have squares. So this one is done. You divide this out because you know you can do these. They're solid colors, right? But this is what you need to decipher. So here's a half square, here's a half square. This is a regular color, regular color, and half square. Well, you have to divide it further out because this is a 4 patch of regular colors. So you would do this 4 patch. Then you would put these 2 half square triangles onto it. You would do these 2 half square triangles and this 1 patch here, and then you would attach all of that to this piece here. Okay, and that would give you your basic bear paw block after you attach these all together. Okay, and that would give you this quilt. This is a basic bear paw quilt, and it's done with sashing in between. Okay, now I really like this pattern because you can not only do this, but if you just turn the blocks a little bit, you can do that. And I think that is so cool that this block over here makes both of these quilts. And the only way you know that is if you sit there and stare at it and study it and dissect it. Now I could do a pattern for this block and sell it, you know, sell it with the instructions and everything. And if you didn't want to figure it out, you could just buy the pattern, and that's cool. That's great. But the more experience you get, the quicker you can figure it out and dissect things. Sometimes, excuse me, you will see a block that you're like, I can't dissect that. I don't understand. Because this one, it's pretty obvious first glance that you've got a 4 patch, right? All right. This one are the same. This one and this one are the same. Okay, that's very clear. This one, it shows you a little line right there, so that's pretty clear. So this is a half square triangle with a rectangle, right? And then a bigger rectangle here. Okay, so those two, that makes sense, all right? And then this one is, well, yeah, they gave you the seam line, so it's the same. So this is a 4 patch here, okay? Yes, the next one that I have, it gets harder. So this is a 4 patch. You attach it to this rectangle, and then you attach this one to this rectangle, and then attach them together. Okay? And you do 2 of those and 2 of those. You assemble it like this. Okay? It's a cute block. I like it. And then as you put them together, you would have a line of green, kind of like the Irish chain I showed you earlier. Yeah, that's kind of a cool block. I like that. Okay, and the last one is combining everything plus. Okay? So we've got, do we? Yeah, we do. No, we don't. We've got half square triangles and squares in this next one. No rectangles. No. Okay. This one is called Lady of the Lake. Now, in this one, they did not give you one of the lines, and you would have to figure it out for yourself. Okay? So, bear with me here. We're going to divide it in half because we want to break it down. Okay? We're going to divide it in half. All right. Now we notice, okay, these are all for the same block. Just like before we were looking at the other ones. It's just turned different each time, right? Okay, fine. So let's just work with one of them. So on this one, I see that this is a green square. This is a 9 patch square, right? Same size, so we can put those together. Now this looks like it is a long pointy thing. And if you look at it, you can probably figure out that if I put a line right here, this becomes a half square triangle and this becomes an orange square. It's okay that this and this are the same fabric, because once you sew them together, it will look like this. Okay? So you just dissect it apart, and then you can cut your pieces, sew it together, and then you get this look, even though you've sewn these two pieces together. Nobody will ever notice. So that's a little quick tutorial on how to dissect patterns that you find. I do more dissecting of patterns than anything at this point. It is just, to me, it's intriguing. It's kind of like a puzzle. I'm like, how did they do that? I want to know how they did that. And so I print it out and I try to figure out, you know, how they attached what to get that look, right? Usually it comes down to half fabric choices, like darks and lights, to make me think they're doing something that they're not. Or it comes down to just basically breaking the pattern down into manageable squares, rectangles, half square triangles, till I figure out how they put it together. So I do occasionally buy patterns. There are patterns out there, especially paper piecing patterns and applique patterns and a lot of curved patterns. To get just the right curve, it's easier just to buy the pattern than it is to try to figure out what that curve is and how much percentage and all that. That's too much math. So I hope this helps. And like I said, go to the links below to the Facebook group and leave me a comment too here. That would be great, because I love to talk back and forth with you guys. I have really enjoyed answering your questions and seeing where all of you are from. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that too. I would really appreciate it. It really helps the channel. And I hope this made sense and helped you out somehow. And until next time, I guess I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.